Hi everyone, this week we've got Paul on the show from Landlord Action. You might recognise him from Channel 5's Nightmare Tenants, Slum Landlords. Paul, before we do anything useful, as always, could you give us a quick introduction, please?
Yes, I'm Paul Shamplina, founder of Landlord Action. Landlord Action, I started about 22 years ago. I'm a director of Landlord Action. I'm also the chief commercial officer for Hamilton Fraser. We own a lot of well-known brands such as My Deposits, Property Redressing, Client Money Protect, Total Landlord Insurance, Landlord Zone, and obviously Landlord Action and some other brands. And obviously people might recognise me from the TV show Nightmare Tenants, Slum Landlords. I've done 6 series. But yeah, I get about, do lots of public speaking, a lot of training, a lot of education. But my day-to-day job is not knocking on doors evicting people, which people think when I get stopped in the street. I sit on a board of a company of 240 staff and 12 different brands. So yeah, my daily job is quite varied, which I enjoy.
That's good, that's good. But my first question for you, Paul, what's the latest on the Renters Reform Bill and White Paper scheduled to be released by the government this spring?
Yeah, but the Renters Reform Bill, I mean, I think it's going to be pushed back, could be pushed back to October. It keeps getting pushed back. We know about the levelling up and obviously a lot of the conversations that government have come out with. Under the Renters Reform Bill, there is the abolishment of Section 21, and I get contacted, I do a lot of press on that. Section 21 will be abolished. When the Renters Reform Bill does come in, they think time-wise is that the Section 21 will be abolished in about 3 years. That's a given, that's going to happen. But obviously you need to make sure that you have the mechanisms in place before doing that. Landlords need to have confidence they can get their property back. So the grounds of Section 8 will be strengthened. There needs to be some major investment in the court system, which they've undertaken to be able to put some money in. There's going to be mediation that will form part of the eviction process, i.e. after serving a notice. There needs to be a big recruitment of judges and bailiffs and bailiff reform. And obviously we've come out of COVID, so the courts are trying to play catch up. We're busier more than ever at Landlord Action when it comes to evictions, but other things that come out of the Renters Reform Bill are lifetime deposits, landlord redress, which we've just launched a pilot scheme under the PRS and the National Residential Landlord Association. They're talking about landlord registration, and they're talking about open-ended tenancies. We are pushing further down the line, a little bit in line as to what's happening with regards to Scotland and Wales, but we're not as far down the line, and some would argue they wouldn't want to be as far down the line as Scotland and Wales.
Well, I think that's a good and a good overview, Paul. Thank you very much. And I want to talk on landlords quitting the sector. So as you know, many landlords are on the verge of quitting the sector because of taxes, greater regulations. In your opinion, should they stay or should they go?
Really good question. I have all these conversations all the time. I can tell you now, 35% of the instructions we get at Landlord Action are Section 21 instructions. You've got to realise, Lee, we've just come out of COVID after 2 years, but the housing market went bananas because of the concession on stamp duty. The older landlords now are finding it harder than ever doing full management. Full management is more difficult than ever. I mean, I did an online course on my website, paulshamplina.tv, which is called Self-Manage or Not to Self-Manage. Landlords now have to reflect, and they've got to realise, do I want to be a professional landlord, even if I've got 1 or 2 properties, or do I want to make sure I give my property to a letting agent to fully manage? And that really is the case, and it should be the case. Or you're getting some landlords thinking, you know what, with Section 24, with numerous regulation, and actually the biggest threat in all of that is going to be the impending EPC changes, where you've got to go up to a level C, and there could be a big cost involved with some of the landlords, and to obviously trying to refurbish and put their properties back up to an EPC grading. So there are landlords thinking, you know what, I'm going to cash in, I've had a good run at this. But buy-to-let is a really good industry. Landlording is a good industry. You've got to be a people's person, without a doubt. You've got to put a price on your time. You've got a business plan. You've got to have an exit strategy. But the reality is, we have a housing crisis. You know, tenants need to sleep somewhere. The stock is shrinking. It means the rents are going up. So you want to keep trying to get those good yields. Trying to get a deal nowadays as to an investment property is a different story because everything's overpriced. But yeah, landlording is a good business, but the mindset change is It's not like it was 3 to 5 years ago. Forget about 10 years ago. And interest rates are going to go up, and landlords have had really cheap money for a long time. But it is a good industry, but you've got to gear up and you've got to be professional.
Thanks, Paul. Just touching on what you said there about the self-manage or hire an agent. What's your view?
My view is it's not for the faint-hearted. I say this in all my talks. I get booked to do lots of public speaking for letting agents and training and all that type of stuff. And I say to landlords, do you want to take a call from your tenant at 5 in the morning that they're drunk and they've lost their keys or the boiler's broken down? You know, some landlords are fit and they can fit to do it, and they can do it as a full-time business. But 90% of landlords only have 1 or 2 properties, and most of them have jobs. So actually, the difference between let only and fully managed is only about 5%. You divide that over 6 or 12 months, it's pennies. It's not a lot of money. And landlords have got to think of the bigger picture, you know. And of course, you know, we've come out of COVID. People have reflected more, you know. And of course, you know, what's the competition? What's your property look like? So I actually recommend landlords to use letting agents to fully manage. But you know, there's some really great agents out there and there's some really poor agents out there, and some landlords have had bad experience with agents, which has pushed them into fully managed. So I still believe that landlords should use agents for fully managed, but there is an art in finding the right agent. Really, really important. I get asked that all the time, and I train on that.
Yep. No, I understand that. And my final question for you, Paul. Talk of rent controls is growing louder, and they look certain to be implemented in Scotland and Wales.
Yes.
Can they ever really work without driving landlords out the sector?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think. Look, I actually hosted an event a few months ago in Glasgow with the minister who is bringing in rent controls in Scotland. It's a reality in Scotland. I think that, you know, I think, will England follow suit? We'll wait to see. There's a lot of campaigning. Obviously, the NRLA and Ben Beadle will be campaigning against that. Obviously, you know, whether it's index linked or inflation linked, inflation's going to be going at a really speedy rate, and we've seen that already in the first quarter of 2022. Yes, if there is rent caps, I think it will put off a lot of landlords. I think there's so much that you keep on doing. I think if you keep prodding and prodding and prodding, and of course, what happens is that a landlord, if he wants to exit the market, he ends up having to evict the tenant because he wants vacant possession to sell. So you create more homelessness. So there needs to be a lot more thought. But I understand the affordability is a big issue. Renting is really expensive. The average rent in London is 1,700 quid. In the UK, it's now over £1,000 a month. It's never been that at all. And no tenant should be paying more than a third of their wages. So there is an issue, and I get that, and I understand why there's conversation. So I don't know what the fine line is going to be, but as far as I know, with regard to Scotland, it's definitely going to be on the horizon. It's going to come in.
I think it's been great having you on the show, Paul, and I think there's a lot of advice, a lot of help that you've given there, and some great answers to the questions. So I'm really grateful for you coming on the show, and I'll definitely have you back if you'll join us.
Definitely. And I write a blog every month for you on Landlord Today as well, with my views and what's going on. And if anyone wants to follow me, just follow me in the socials. I'm always approachable.
Thank you, Paul. I appreciate it.
Take care.